right, what's up, Tampa? It is Friday, September 5th, and this is Tampa Talk.
Your weekly wrap-up of everything happening around the Bay, news, history, events, and the work that's happening right here.
I'm John.
And I'm Dahlia. Thanks for joining us.
All right, so this week we got a full lineup. Tampa's immigrant roots in Ybor, a bold move to shut down vaccine mandates, and a controversial lawsuit over public camping in St. Pete.
Plus, Tampa could be getting a brand new ice arena. Temple Terrace might spend $8 million on a pickleball complex, and a demolition starts soon at Robles Park to make way for an $800 million rebuild.
We've also got an important update on the effort to reopen the shop, Tampa's homeless drop-in center, after it was shut down due to federal funding cuts.
All that and more. So let's begin with This Week in the Work. John, want to tell us a little bit about Respond Together and kind of the work you've been doing over the past week there?
Yeah, so, well, for those that don't know, so Respond Together is, okay, so like when the hurricanes happened last year, we had met with a group of alliances, networks, like a bunch of different networks working in different arenas, mostly overlapping with faith communities. So some of these worked in like an alliance around foster care, one in sex trafficking, one was just a network of churches, one business leaders, a bunch of different networks. And we just said, hey, we should maybe know each other. Like, wouldn't it be good if we like our networks were networked, you know? Why? Well, we believe in the power of network and collaboration. And maybe if our city ever needed us, we could like tap into the power of all of these networks. The idea being a dense network, like if all of those nets are laid over each other, you know, you got more coverage, less holes in it necessarily. And we had met one time, unrelated to storms, but that was like a for instance. Like for instance, if like a storm came, and then Helene came like right after that meeting, but then, you know, Milton's threatening right on the heels of that. And so we jumped on a Zoom call right between the storms, and we were like, all right, we are not prepared. We have no time. We barely talk to each other at this point, but we should try to do something. So all of us started gathering as much info as we can. I started jumping in on COAD meetings, talking with folks from the Emergency Operations Center and all these different things. And I showed up thinking they're going to tell us what I could take back to these church communities and these networks to go, here's how you can help and here's where you can go. What I found out was they wanted to hear from us, like what's going on in all of the neighborhoods, report back, like we can't see everywhere, and realize the balance between like decentralized eyes and hands and then a centralized, like equipped kind of command center. And so anyway, over that season, we realized as it was too late, we were trying to call churches, but we had never had this conversation about the utilization of buildings and the way they deploy congregations. And so I was sending out daily emails with everything that I could learn to our networks, just to go, here's information as much as I was able to gather. And the subject line in those was Respond Together. It was a call to action, not an organization or anything like that. But since then, we've realized as we've actually mapped where all the churches are throughout the Tampa Bay area, they're everywhere. Their buildings are everywhere. Their people are everywhere. It's the physical and social infrastructure needed to do like a really strong response effort. But they don't all talk to each other and know each other, and there's no coordinated effort. So Respond Together is exactly that. It's our effort to build a network. It's not a new org or anything. It's just like, hey, we should know each other. We should talk to each other. We should build out a communication channel. We should have a point of contact for every church in the area. We should asset map them. So that's the effort we've been working on. So last Thursday, we did a full day orientation training where we had about 24 churches represented, sent out people to go, let's talk about the church as a building, like how to take care of your building, how to utilize your building, church as a congregation, like how to take care of your people and equip your people. But then also church as a neighbor, like how to look out for the vulnerable around you and how to report back on behalf of these different communities. It was really great. We worked with United Way, Salvation Army, a bunch of other local churches came through, the local Presbytery leadership for their disaster response. It was a really great turnout. And then we've been just ongoing trying to build out asset maps and get these buildings to report back, like here's our square footage, here's places that could be used for storage. Maybe this church has a parking lot a food truck could pull up in for like distribution, or they have a kitchen for food prep. And so we're working really hard at that. And then today, so we record on Thursday, so a week later, and we actually got invited out to Love Inc., which is one of those networks that has 19 churches that they work with. They had their annual gathering, and so they invited us in to share kind of this effort with them and to begin the conversation. So that's another 19 churches that hopefully will be engaging. But this is just an effort that we've been doing. You know, we're always beating the drum of coordination and collaboration, locking arms, because really, like, none of us can do this alone. The needs in our city in every arena take cooperative effort like you guys are doing with Homegrown Hillsborough, or like, you know, it's like in all of these conversations, just going, look, the more we can build out the relationships and the social infrastructure, what we're seeing over time is that's what actually works when things go down. And so we're hoping to build those relationships. So that's what the effort we've been calling Respond Together.
I'm curious to see as the weeks go on and hurricane season is left behind us, if that like, fingers crossed, nobody wants another hurricane this year, which means you might lose some of that momentum.
Definitely.
Right? And so that's like a real reality. It's kind of a silly reality of any kind of social issue. It's like when it's not worst case scenario, we kind of forget to focus on it, right? We, even on the Homegrown Hillsborough side, right? Like a lot of COVID and hurricanes, they bring light to our food system failures. And so
we should pay attention to this.
Yeah, it makes a case for us to think about complementary food systems and community development in food. Anyways, are you any thoughts around that?
No, for sure. Well, we've been aware, and so we've been doing everything we can this year, but it took us a while to kind of get our heads around what was needed and organize some like tools and make a network that we could even invite to something or plan a training. It took a while to build this out, and now here we are, like in hurricane season. And if we are going to get hit again, it's going to be in the next month or two.
Yeah.
That's about when you'll start seeing Gulf storms. Obviously, we don't want to see that, but you're right, we will lose momentum if we don't see anything. But we're trying to strike while the iron's hot. And right now, obviously, like today and last week is a great time to go, hey, you need to think today about, like, do you know where all your people live? Do you know how to get in touch with them? Do you know what flood zones they're in? Do you know if they're equipped and cared for? Do you know how you can be responsive to your neighbors or do you know that Miss Mabel in the congregation is on oxygen? And like finding out these vulnerabilities, getting these contact lists put together, tapping a care call team. Like, these are all things that, like, they're obvious in hindsight.
Yeah.
But they take a lot of like initiative to do ahead of time. But right now we're just like beating that drum and trying to help these congregations to do that now. And obviously, hopefully we don't need it immediately. And even if we do, it'll be a fledgling effort, but it'll be a much better effort than it was a year ago. Yeah.
And if we stick with it in a year, it'll be an even better effort, and we can still keep improving and learning from what happens in other places, because someone's going to get hit. And
well, that's right. In some sense, it's a regional effort. Like we're, if it's down south of us or north of us, like, are we in a place to go? We know what that's like, and we can come through for our neighbors.
Well, I'll say that one thing I think Well-Built Cities has really benefited in itself is we developed a text platform about our own markets because of last year, and this kind of your efforts to kind of respond together, and how do we better inform our program participants when there's a hurricane or a threat of a hurricane, as well as even just guidelines as to like what you can take from our pantries leading up to hurricanes, to like hurricane season, to better prepare. So like stock up on some of those squashes, or when we get water through, right? Because it is hurricane season, and so take advantage of these things.
It's interesting to me, and I've said for a long time, like, a lot of the answers for what we need for our future can be found in our past. And one of the things, and this will actually lead us into maybe this week in Tampa history, but a lot of this effort really is around mutual aid, around looking out for one another, about like one church took a hit and one church is good. Can we look out for each other? Or one, whatever these things are. And so there's the collaborative effort to like look out for and care for our neighbors and build mutual aid. And so I don't know, maybe let's jump into this week in Tampa history. I think it touches on that a little bit.
Yeah, and we talk about this part of Tampa history a lot because it has really shaped our community. And so today we're heading back to September 7th, 1891, when something foundational took root in Ybor City, and that was the chartering of El Centro Español de Tampa, the city's first Latin mutual aid society.
Yeah, so imagine you're arriving in a new country. You barely speak English. You're working unbelievably long hours in a cigar factory. Life was not easy for Tampa's early Cuban, Spanish, and Italian immigrants.
And so they built their own safety nets. And so El Centro Español wasn't just a clubhouse. It was full-on mutual aid society that provided medical care, social support, and a deep sense of belonging. And it was funded by a small membership dues. So this wasn't like free services.
My understanding is actually that this is kind of the origin story of even HMOs and some of the insurance structures we have today. They even constructed 2 full-scale clubhouses, one in Ybor and one in West Tampa. They featured theaters, libraries, pharmacies, meeting halls. These weren't just buildings, they were like community hubs and lifelines.
And you know what else is really cool about this, when you even just think about the difference between Ybor and one in West Tampa? And we're talking like Main Street West Tampa, which is, pretty downtown-esque West Tampa. But those would have been two totally different cities at the time.
Yeah, that's right.
And when you remove cars, right, and we talk about this a lot with people who don't have access to transportation, that half mile walkability, that was why there was one in Ybor and one in West Tampa. And that, like, you couldn't get to the one in Ybor if you lived in West Tampa because maybe that's 2-3 miles apart.
Well, and they would, I mean,
and
gosh, and there's
communities.
stories of even like warring communities between, not necessarily with this people group, but those were
in
two
general,
cities.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so it really brings light too to maybe how we think about, theaters, libraries, pharmacies, and meeting halls today, and the need for density of those services. It's not enough to say, like, I live in Temple Terrace. Okay, well, that's not a good example because the hospital at USF would be, I was forgetting about USF's hospitals. But let's pretend TGH and St. Joe's are the only two hospitals in Tampa and you live in Temple Terrace. Now you're too far away from hospitals, right? The reality is USF also has hospitals. But you kind of catch my drift, right? Like the density of these services really matter. And it actually became a model for other societies like the Centro Asturiano and the Círculo Cubano, showing how communities take care of each other when systems fail.
So when you walk past those amazing buildings in Ybor, you're not just seeing history and a beautiful building, but you're seeing like resilience, mutual aid, mutual support that really helped build Tampa and the community here into the city that it is today.
I'd also argue that maybe that's why we still know these cultures were so pervasive. Because it's not like you have an overwhelming amount of Italians or Spanish people in Cubans, yes. Latin Americans, yes. But I'm Italian. There's not a lot of Italians here. Yet there's this big reference to Italian culture and Italian Americans that are 5 generations in, and we still have a Lessie's Bakery, and we still have, even like the Boozy Pig, Andrew Tambruzzo, right? Italian roots. A lot of that I think is in credit anecdotally to these societies that created a place for that culture to thrive, even 5 generations down the line.
So let's get into some local current event news. In a press conference this week, the Florida Surgeon General, Joseph Ladapo, announced the state is working to end all vaccine mandates. This includes longstanding school immunization requirements. I don't know these. Like
they're basically like diphtheria, like I think that's what the D stands for in that. Tetanus,
chickenpox.
Yep. Measles is your MMR vaccine. So these are things that we've eradicated here across the world, or specifically in North America, largely because of these vaccines, some would argue. And so while Florida already, and just to be clear too, vaccines are not required at like the national level. Like there's nothing to say that you as an individual living in the United States needs to have a vaccine.
So this is why the state surgeon general making a change like this, it's state.
Well, this is for the school system. So this is a state-level school immunization. So you don't have to go get a vaccine, but that doesn't mean you can go to public school. So I've been as an immigrant to the United States, when I immigrated to this country and applied to go to USF, they forced me to take vaccines because they said, you're an immigrant, you can't come into this country unless you take these vaccines. Yep. Some of those vaccines, my American counterpoints did not have. But because I was immigrating to this country, they required it. But that's important to remember here is this is for school immunization requirements, not no one's forcing you at the hospital to vaccinate your kid. Some countries, they do. Some countries, vaccines are mandated at the hospital. You're not taking, it's considered like it's illegal to walk out of the hospital without getting that vaccine for your child. So Florida schools already this would make it so that beyond religious exemptions, you could remove all requirements together. And currently, this goes against national norms, which all 50 states currently require vaccinations for school-aged kids. So again, this is a school thing. I just want to make that clear because it kind of sounds like across the board we've been forced to have vaccines. Not the case.
But with the schools you were. For context, a recent WHO-led study found that vaccines have saved more than 154 million lives over the last 50 years. 60% of those just from measles vaccines.
Yeah, and I think we've actually reported on a measles outbreak in the past year or so. And a lot of people are critiquing this vaccination, the movement away from vaccinations as the cause for that. Because the reason we've eradicated, the reason we don't have measles and we're not dying in swaths is because we have things like these vaccines, right? And so we don't hear about measles anymore. But if all of a sudden more and more of our population isn't having the measles vaccine, we might see more measles, right? And that's kind of the argument, and where people draw the concern is because what does this look like as a public health issue? And so the ultimate conversation that was had from the Florida Surgeon General is that this promotes more choice. And so it's not a mandate, it is a choice that you can have. And a lot of other states are responding almost on the flip side of that. Like there's this article featured the Alliance, the West Coast Alliance for Public Health, which is alternatively California, Oregon, and Washington are saying, hey, we're going to come together and kind of be our own CDC, because the CDC operating at the national level is no longer aligned with, well, it's getting gutted, basically. It's like they're losing money, they're losing people, like they're saying, hey, we don't trust the CDC anymore, so we're going to create something for our own people. So those are kind of the two extremes to the same, or not extremes, but the two sides of two different states responding differently to what used to be kind of a national approach to something like vaccinations. So really interesting to follow. And it begs the question, like, we don't even think about vaccines as adults, because other than like flu shot, chicken pox, COVID, whatever, we don't need to get vaccines. We've already had them all. We've both had all these vaccines already, right?
We had to.
Yeah, we had to. And so I had to get them again at 18, because I had to get vaccines that I already had just because they weren't administered in this country. So I had to get double vaccinated.
Yeah.
Right? Which was fine. In 2015, that was okay. Nobody was really questioning those things. So it is going to be interesting when we think about, really we're not going to see the outcome of this for 20 years, 30 years, right? Because you already have the baby born, the 3-year-old entering the school system this year had all these vaccinations, right? They were required to. So in some other news, this one is about Temple Terrace city leaders voting to move forward with plans for an $8 million Blazing Paddles complex. So to be clear, this isn't Temple Terrace making the complex. This is a private company, but it will feature an indoor and outdoor pickleball courts, bars, food, music, cornhole, and shuffleboard. And ultimately, this Temple Terrace owns the property. And so they're voting to sell the property to Blazing Paddles.
Okay, interesting. That's an important detail. So despite money concerns, Mayor Andy Ross says the city needs something like this. There's nothing else like it, but everyone seems to be on board. Councilmember Eric Kravitz voted no, warning that the funding plan is risky and lacks safeguards for the public money.
Yeah, and the fear is really that if it fails, then somebody else owns the land, right? And so now the city doesn't own the land, which is a $2 million asset, and we don't have the economic driver of this bar food scene thing that we're hoping would generate jobs and economic.
And this is right over there by that Winn-Dixie.
This is right over there in front of the Winn-Dixie. Yeah. Yep. So that empty piece of land on 56th Street, which I would love to see. As somebody who lives over there, I would absolutely love to see it.
There's a place, and I don't know exactly where it's located, called Chicken Pickle, that I've always seen online and thought, man, that seems really cool. But it's like a big pickleball arena with food and vendors and drinks. And
I don't see why it wouldn't work. I mean, golf, we do this with, like, Top Golf has been, which I think Top Golf did go bankrupt or sell or something.
Is that right?
I mean, it's still going to operate. I think somebody else bought it or whatever, but I think Top Golf was having some money issues. But still, it's still a premier destination for something like this, right? And also, don't quote me on that. But yeah, we see it with golf, we see it with putt-putt, we see it with bowling, right? Why not pickleball? So I'm excited.
Pickleball seems to be in the news every week.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, in Hillsborough County, commissioners just greenlit a feasibility study for a brand new ice skating and hockey arena right on the Mosey campus.
And so we've been talking a lot about things getting built over at Mosey. And so that's because it's a 67-acre redevelopment area that is already supposed to include an indoor sports complex. And this potential new arena could bring in partnerships with the Lightning, USF, and others.
Commissioner Ken Hagan called it an unbelievable addition to entertainment and education corridor that would include a planetarium, black box theater, and more.
Yeah, and again, selfishly, like, I would love a hockey rink closer to where we are. Because where is the next hockey rink? West Tampa, I think, has one. I think West Tampa has a couple.
So we're not talking about, like, the arena. We're talking about, like, so.
Yeah, like for people to skate at. Yeah, I think, like, Carrollwood has one. over
I
there
have no idea.
somewhere.
I've never even looked for one.
Yeah, there's one up in Lutz.
I just know one pops up downtown every year at Christmas time.
Yeah, that's true too. Those are not great ones though. Over in St. Pete, the Southern Poverty Law Center, SPLC, has joined a legal battle concerning the city's enforcement of public camping laws.
Yeah, so some of you will remember, like, the state passed a law saying businesses could actually sue municipalities. So local business owner Ronica Whaley sued the city, saying her restaurant, She's So Crispy, has suffered due to the city not enforcing laws banning sleeping in public. The SPLC and Progressive People's Action are now representing the homeless residents affected.
So critics argue that this law is going to further perpetuate the criminalization of homelessness. And so this is kind of it playing out a little bit, and we'll kind of see what comes out of it. Another thing that kind of relates to people with different socioeconomic statuses being affected relates to the demolition that takes place on September 15th at Robles Park Village. So this is a 400-unit public housing complex. And then basically they're demoing it, and then they're going to make way for an $800 million mixed income redevelopment.
Yeah, this has been a long time in the making, and so the date for demo has actually been set finally. There's nobody there anymore. They've been kind of closing that down for quite some time. Like Encore is an example of like the mixed income.
Yeah.
That's where one of the housing projects used to be. The new plan calls for nearly 2,000 units, walking trails, markets, a community hub, and even a genealogy center honoring the Zion Cemetery that was discovered on site in 2019.
That's pretty cool. So yeah, 400 units to 2,000, and former residents will actually they actually get a express voucher to be able to qualify to get those apartments. So they get like first dibs at these new apartments is kind of the ideal. But construction starts in 2026, and then they'll have priority access if they still receive their Section 8 voucher.
So one of the big stories this week hits really close to home because it actually involves us. The coffee shop, Tampa's homeless drop-in center that was formerly run by Grace Point, shut down in July after losing key funding.
Yeah, and we've talked a little bit about this, but for nearly 40 years, the shop was a lifeline. People came in to shower, do laundry, check their mail, and get connected to benefits and support. The article that we shared from Tampa Bay Times talks about a man named George Rubin. It was a place that helped him reconnect with family and rebuild his life. Yeah,
I was really glad that the reporter was able to have a conversation with him. It really added quite a bit to the story. But now that it's closed, a coalition of churches and community leaders, like we've shared about, has come together to try to reopen it. So we were invited into that conversation, and our team with Well-Built Cities has really stepped in to try to help with that effort. So we are now working very hard to raise $180,000, which is like a bootstrapped amount really for us to kind of bring it back to life, to take over the lease, to kind of keep on the utilities, get the insurance on the place. But we were working hard to raise that.
Yeah, you are working hard to raise that. And so we've already raised about half that amount, and the community response has been incredible. Still a long way to go, but I've been enjoying being a part of this all.
Yeah, it's incredible. We're getting there. It feels really good, the amount of support we've had already. By the way, if you care about addressing homelessness in our city, making sure that our neighbors have a place to just clean up, get a mailing address, drink some coffee, get in out of the sun, not be run off because of the criminalization of homelessness all over Florida. This is a place that offered dignity and compassion. It really matters. It was a space that was really important to our homeless neighbors, and it still can. We'd love to invite you to help support this. So if you go to wellbuilt.city and hit the donate button, you'll see some drop down things like Well-Fed Community, Well-Built Bikes, but we added Save the Shop. If you would like to contribute directly to this effort, we'd really appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think for people that are from Florida, it's actually pretty unique that there aren't, because we have such a warm climate, we don't have these like shelters that exist in a lot of the northern states, right? In Toronto, we have homeless shelters. They'll house you, they let you sleep for the night. It's a lot more common because you die on the streets, right? We do the same thing with cooling centers in hotter months, but I'm sharing this because it really rings true to me, the need for something like this facility, which is more so about creating some sort of landing spot where, again, if you're trying to rebuild your life, but you have absolutely no mailing address or absolutely no place to take a shower, or absolutely no place to like rest your head indoors. Yeah, we might not have the extreme cold, but those shelters, while necessitated by the cold weather, do a lot more than just give people a place to sleep and get out of the cold. And so I don't know, but having lived in a cold climate, I was always like, where are the homeless shelters here? I was like, oh, they don't need it. But it's for a different reason that they do need it.
And to be clear, there are some homeless shelters. Tampa Hope has all of the tents and the cottages out there on the other side of Ybor. Salvation Army has a shelter. There's different. It's not just like the drop in. And then in the cold weather, we do open up some like cold weather shelters for crashing. But this kind of daytime shelter kind of model is really important. So a cooling center is a great example. Is like just getting out of the sun. And by the way, like, just as you're thinking about like who this would be useful to, I mean, thinking about like, we think about like, oh, the homeless person that lives on the streets and is in the alley or whatever, maybe mental health problems, which is a large number of people in our city, but also there with the rising housing costs and people getting priced out of homes, or thinking like an abused spouse that leaves and has nowhere to go. There's so many people in our city that are living in their cars, which thank God they have that car and they can lock that up. But also this is a place that they could come in the morning to clean their clothes, get a shower, have that mailing address, have a cup of coffee, have access to the internet, the phone, a computer, all of those kind of things. So anyway, we're working really hard to pull it off. We're getting so close we can almost taste it. But we do need to kind of pull these resources together pretty quickly so we can pull the trigger on the actual lease and insurance and kind of get some staffing in place. And then we will heavily rely on volunteers from these partner churches to come in and help offer hospitality and welcome folks.
Well, thanks for clarifying that, because that's what I think is really important for people to hear. Like a lot of times people, I think, have one image of homelessness in their head, and that's not necessarily the only image of homelessness. And I think that's really important for people to hear when they think about why do these services kind of exist and where this gap is in serving that community. In terms of events we got this weekend, we have Howl-O-Scream starting at Busch Gardens. It's officially like fall. I mean, not officially because I think the solstice has something to do with that. But no, that's winter. I don't know. It's probably not the official. It's not the official start of fall, but it's September, and we never get fall weather here in Florida. So September is the start of fall. Yeah. And with that, Busch Gardens is starting their Halloween events. And so haunted houses, scare zones, roaming zombies, and more. It has just been named the #2 Halloween theme park in the U.S. by USS Today. And every time we talk about Busch Gardens, I am reminded by the fact that I still have not been.
Seriously?
I'm probably
we should go. We should go. I would love to go over there with you.
Yeah, I know you. I know you used to work there, so I know.
Drawing caricatures. Maybe some of y'all have some of my drawings still. And then, as always, we'll be out at the Ybor Street Community Garden on Saturday from 8. Friday.
Today.
Yeah. We'll be there today.
Yeah.
When you hear this, from 8 to 10 a.m. And then we're also going to have a team over at Harvest Hope Park from 10:30 to 11:30 a.m. sharing groceries with the Kinship Mobile Free Market.
Yep. Yes, we will. Otherwise, that's what we're talking about this week. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, and share tampatalk.xyz or wordonthestreets.xyz. We love hearing from you all, and until next time.
Y'all be good.